Question 8. A study was conducted to investigate whether the mean reaction time of drivers who are talking on mobile phones is the same as the mean reaction time of drivers who are talking to passengers in the vehicle. Two independent groups were randomly selected for the study. To gather data, each driver was put in a car simulator and asked to either talk on a mobile phone or talk to a passenger. Each driver was instructed to apply the brakes as soon as they saw a red light appear in front of the car. The reaction times of the drivers in seconds were recorded as shown in the following table. Right? Yeah. At the 10% significant level of significance, a t-test was used to compare the mean reaction times of the two groups. Each dataset is assumed to be normally distributed, and the population variances are assumed to be the same. Let mu1 and mu2 be the population means for the two groups. The null hypothesis for this test is HO is mu1 minus mu2 is equal to 0. Right. Part A asks us to state the alternative hypothesis. So with the alternative hypothesis, there are three options. We have the means in this case not being the same, one mean being higher than the other, and vice versa, the other mean being higher than the other, or less than. Okay, to figure out which one we need here, we need to go back up to the top, the first paragraph here, and we see it says, study was conducted, ... mean reaction time of drivers who are talking on mobile phones is the same. Okay, so I know it's obviously a very small word, but that's critical. That's a critical bit of information in order to answer part A, to state the alternative hypothesis. Now, this could say the other options here could be whether the mean reaction time of drivers who are talking on mobile phones is less than the reaction time or more than, and then that would give us a different alternative hypothesis. Okay, so all this is asking is so we're trying to find out whether they're the same. So regardless of whether one's less or more than the other, doesn't matter. Just we want to show that show whether they are the same or they're not the same at this 10% level of significance. So alternative hypothesis, we'll highlight that. And so that will be, so since all we need to do is basically show that they are, so if our null hypothesis is that they are the same, all right, then our alternative hypothesis is going to be that they're not the same. And the way we denote that is we write an H1, and we'll say mu1 minus mu2 does not equal 0. Okay, so there is the answer to part A. Let's move on to part B. Calculate the p-value for this test. Right, let's say p-value. Now, your calculator is going to do the heavy lifting in this question. So you're going to need to know how to use the statistics section or mode in your calculator, how to make two lists in your calculator, and then specifically for this question, you'll need to know how to run a two-sample t-test in your specific calculator. I'll bring you over to the one I have, which is on my laptop, which is an emulator of the Casio FXCG500. Yeah, so they're all slightly different. More or less, the process will somewhat be the same. But yeah, I would advise if your calculator is different to my one, just Google it, YouTube, how to run this test, and it'll be pretty clear. Okay, so I've already gone in and put in the data from the table here. So we had 7 lots of data. This list 1 here is for talking on the mobile phone, and list 2 is for talking to a passenger. All right, so with this calculator, the way I do it is I'm going to go to the calculation section, then go to test, right, and then I get this down here. All right, I need to run a two-sample t-test, so I'm going to click that, go next, right? So mu1 condition, so this is effectively what's the alternative hypothesis, all right, and our one is not equal, okay? So you've got these, less than or greater than, we're not equal. And for the AI SL course, you'll always have this pooled part on. Okay, so always have that on if you're doing AISL. Yeah, all right. So now we go next, and here we have all our different. So we've got the the mean for the first group or the first list, which is talking on a mobile phone at 0.85. The mean here, standard deviation, a whole bunch of different statistical measures. Okay, but the one thing that we are interested in is this one here. Okay, this is our p-value. All right, probability. Okay, so that what's that? 0.0778 to three significant figures. So let's come back to the pad, and we will write that down. Let's see. There we go. All right, we're back. So, and it was part one, right? Oh no, just B by itself. Okay, so p-value is equal to 0.0778. Right, and so there is the answer to part B. Let's move on to part C now. And there's two parts to this. So we've got part one. State the conclusion of the test and justify your answer. Okay, so the way we're going to state the conclusion here, so we're going to say let's say here, our p-value of 0.0078 is less than our significance level, which I'm just going to write as SL, okay, which is equal to 0.1 or 0.10 if you want to write as 10%, but yeah, 0.1 would be fine, okay? And so in this case, all right, so when the p-value is less than the significance level, right, we reject the null hypothesis, right? Very good to sort of, write this down, remember it, have it on a cue card, and just practice before your test to remember which way they go. Okay, so if p-value is less than the significance level, we reject the null hypothesis, and vice versa. All right, so then we'd say, I'm going to put these three dots here that I've talked about a couple of times, means therefore in mathy language. Okay, and we'll say we reject HO. Okay, and so that will be the answer to part CI or part C1. Now let's move on to part 2 and let's see what that asks. So what do we have to say? State what your conclusion means in context. All right, so this is going to be in the context of the question here, which is talking about the reaction times of the drivers, whether they have a passenger or whether they're talking on the phone. All right. And since we're rejecting the null hypothesis, which is stating that the means are equal to each other, that means our conclusion is that the means are not equal to each other. And so a bit of a standard way to start these off is if you say there is sufficient evidence to suggest that, what should we say, the mean reaction times are different. And then we have the answer to question 8. I will stress, if you are unsure of how to do part B here, so calculate the p-value and use your calculator to that, do just Google it, YouTube, or find out how to do that with your calculator. It'll be quite important for your exam. There'll definitely be a question along these lines. But yeah, and the good thing is your calculator is most of the heavy lifting, which is quite nice. Anyway, there we go. Quick answer to question 8.